Hello there, very good evening and welcome to Feedback. Well, Feedback is a brand new program being produced by the Department of Public Information in collaboration with the National Communications Network. What we're going to do this evening, this being our first program, we're going to walk you through the format and the purpose behind this program. Now, as you may be aware, since the 2nd of August 2020, the ministers of the Dr. Irfan Ali-led government, following their swearing in, would have been in the fields, going to communities, meeting with the people, finding out the problems that are facing them, and sought to address them almost instantly. But the problem that we have is that we cannot, as a government, go to every single community in the shortest possible time. So we have thought about a way in which we can give the citizens of this country an opportunity, those who the ministers have not yet visited, an opportunity so that you can raise your concerns, issues affecting you, and you can talk to the government through a platform like this. Hence, we have designed this program where we're going to look at issues by sectors. We allow you to ask your questions, to raise your concerns, and to make queries on those issues in those particular sectors. This evening, on our very first program, we have the Minister of Tourism, Industry and Commerce, the Honorable Oneidge Walrond. Minister, good evening and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Eddie. Edward, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure being here this year. Inaugural program. Yes.
All right, so what we're going to do, Minister, you have piloted two very, very important pieces of legislation that are before the National Assembly as we speak. We're going to talk a little bit about those, and then we're going to open the phone lines so that we can take questions, comments, queries, and maybe complaints, if necessary, from citizens anywhere across the country. We're going to share the number. I figure the operators are going to be able to put the number on the screen that you'll be able to call to make your contribution to this program. Minister, I want to start with the hire purchase bill. This is an absolutely brand new bill that is before the National Assembly. And I don't think a lot of Guyanese understand the importance of a piece of legislation like this. The fact is, a lot of Guyanese utilize hire purchase facilities across the country from various businesses. Explain to us what exactly this bill is.
Yes. Once again, thank you, Eddie, for this opportunity to explain government's agenda. We have a very packed legislative agenda, and the idea behind it is to transform and to create the regulatory and legal infrastructure for to support business and the growth that we are going to see in the Guyanese economy. And the hire purchase bill is one of the bills that are the pieces of legislation is going to be needed for the growth that we're seeing in the economy. It promotes competition. It promotes an enabling environment for commerce. And that is one of the reasons why it has been tabled by the Ministry of Tourism, Industry and Commerce. As we grow as the economy, the availability and access to credit and hire purchase facilities becomes more and more. Households going to need contemporary commodities and necessities like the washing machines and this. Motor vehicles, motorcycles, and these having access to this through the hire purchase arrangement speaks of convenience. So you're right. Currently, people are using the hire purchase arrangement, but what we've found is that it's been particularly usury, and the terms and the conditions on which people are able to access hire purchase have been very onerous, and unscrupulous sellers have taken advantage of people. So this legislation is an all-encompassing to protect the consumers largely. There's measures in there that protects both parties, because even sellers are sometimes reluctant to give credit to other people because they're afraid that they lose out, and so they want people to come with cash. So it opens the opportunity for more commerce, more economic activity, and it is a transformational bill.
Minister, and you hear this complaint. I've practiced journalism for a number of years, so this is one of the complaints very often. People show up at newsrooms with out of frustration to say, look, I've bought a vehicle. I'm paying on terms for the vehicle, as we call it in the Guyanese parlance, but I have just a few months remaining. I ran into some financial difficulties, and now the person who I bought the vehicle from, whether auto sale or so, or whatever item you would have bought, they're now saying that they're going to seize the item because they just have a few months remaining. How and that's a complaint that we've been hearing, like I said, for quite a long time.
Absolutely.
How much in this bill those issues are going to be addressed? And secondly, you have the flip side of it, where persons take items from persons who provide a hire purchase facility, whether household items, whether vehicle, whatever it is, and they sometimes recklessly use those items and refuse to pay. So when the person turns up to seize the item, then the value of the item, it loses significant value. How much of those as well are being addressed by this bill?
Yes, those issues are absolutely addressed by the bill. The first issue that you highlighted, the fact that persons are at risk of losing possession of their items that they've almost paid for. They could just be one payment left, a day late, and people barge in to repossess the cars and the household items. And this bill makes that an offense. It protects the consumer against that. In fact, if more than 50% of the amount on the item has been paid, then the seller cannot repossess unless they go before the court. They have to have a judge or a magistrate determine that you can go ahead and repossess. So it's a heavier burden. It's a barrier to this ad hoc turning up and repossessing an item that has been mostly paid for, and it protects the fact that you're not even given notice when they come in to barge in to collect your items. The bill even prevents that forcible entry without notice, coming in on your property and taking away your items. And so it is indeed significant, a significant protection for the consumer. The flip side, it also protects the seller against the buyer who takes an item, have no intention of paying for it, and they decided, okay, I'm going to. So one of the ways it protects the seller is that people would take an item and then you have to say what the location is, so when it's time for repossession, the seller can come. So they move it to another location secretly, surreptitiously. The legislation makes that an offense, to remove an item without giving notice to the seller that you're not using the item. You also have to keep the item in a condition on which it's fit for use, and you have to swear to that. And the seller has the opportunity to come and inspect the goods to make sure that you're keeping it in that. So that's a right also that is available to the seller, that he or she has that opportunity to come and to inspect and make sure that you're keeping the goods for the use for which it was meant to be, for which you bought it. And so the legislation specifically sets out those terms, that if you bought this vehicle as a car, because there's some vehicles you buy as scrap metal, if you buy it and this is the purpose for which you use it, for the term of the hire purchase agreement, it has to be able to be used for that purpose.
Significantly there, Minister, you mentioned the 50% payment. Yeah. And I hope our viewers, whether you're a person who utilize a hire purchase facility or you are a person who provides that service, understands the 50% where it places you. On one hand, as a consumer, I don't intend to buy an item, pay 50% and then or pay 49% and then fault on it to lose it. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, you as a person who provides a service, you have from 0 to 49%. Mm-hmm. So if the person fails anywhere between there, mm-hmm. you have the opportunity to repossess your item. So it's really a middle ground. Mm-hmm. It's really a middle ground.
Yes.
with
Yes.
regards to the hire purchase bill. And I hope people understand clearly what this is going to do. This is protecting both the consumer and both the consumer and the service provider. What are some of the other provisions in the bill that you may want to talk about?
The provision that I particularly like is, I mean, they're all very good, but I think there is the temptation to want to buy contemporary commodities without really being informed of whether can I afford this? Is this within my budget? And sometimes, Christmas time comes around, you see this item, everybody's in a buying frenzy. And the idea is that it affects sometimes socially and financially families who have not been able to, who can't keep up with the payments. They're not well informed. And so the bill provides for a 7-day cooling off period, so to speak, where you are given, the seller, the buyer, can buy the item, take possession, and can decide within 7 days that, you know what, this was not the wisest thing to do. This is not something I can afford right now, and to change his or her mind and cancel the agreement and return the product. And the seller has to take it back. So that 7-day cooling off period, I think it's really transformation. I think it's an important aspect that people feel that they're not always tied to their bad decisions, and that the devastation that sometimes comes from taking on expenses that you really cannot afford, especially with an unsophisticated and uninformed buyer who hasn't really contemplated all of his or her financial circumstances on taking the item, can have an opportunity to return it and say this was not the best decision. Some of the other important aspects of the bill and the provisions that is the fact that that it is an offense for the seller to hide the real price of the item in secrecy and funny financial language. Take this $4,000 and you can take this home, when it's $4,000 a week and for over the 36 months and the compounded interest and by the time you look at it, it's triple the price by the time you at the end of the period. So what this bill provides for is that you have to disclose what the cash price is for this item, what the higher purchase price is. You juxtapose the two prices and you see that it's triple or double, and you can then make that decision. So it's clear. They have to disclose that, and so it is no longer selling a lie that you can afford this. It's the consumer seeing that for themselves and making that decision, as opposed to take this home for $4,000, it's yours, and then you realize that for 18 months down the line is almost like you're not finished paying for it and you have so much left on it, because they don't appreciate that the prices really tripled or doubled, and didn't understand that at the time that they made the decision.
Interesting, because very often you see prices that says cash price, regular price. You're tempted, because the difference between the two may be small, but the cash price and the regular price, I suspect, sometimes excludes the interest that is added. And you made the point of when you finish paying, people realize that they're paying for 3 of the same thing, and only receiving 1. What we're going to do, Minister, I'm thinking maybe before we get the issue lost, maybe on the hire purchase bill, we should open the lines now to hear some of the concerns and the contributions from our viewers. And then as we go along, we may look at the small business amendment bill. So let's take a few calls. Good evening. I think we lost that one there. So often you, like I said, you keep hearing the concern from people about these little things, and what I like the most is the fact that this piece of legislation seems to have simplified and seems to have created a level playing field for all, for those who provide the services and those who utilize the services. And you spoke about the fact that the 7 days cooling off. Interesting, quite interesting provision there in the bill. sometimes we go to places, we see things and we're tempted.
Yes.
We like
yeah.
the thing, it looks good, but we don't have the financial means
Right.
to really buy that, whether on hire purchase or not. But because the temptation is there, because maybe the installments are very low, you know,
And it often is.
we're
It's
tempted to
often
go after
advertised
it.
as low, yes.
But then when you
yes.
sit at home, you have 7 days to do all your calculations
Yes.
and to reevaluate and
Yes.
so on to make a
Yeah.
determination. So I think that is quite interesting. And this piece of legislation, I suspect, I know there was talk about this legislation since in the previous People's Progressive Party civic administration,
Yeah.
where attempts were made to brought a piece of legislation like this to protect both the consumers and those who provide the services.
Yes, indeed, Eddie. What we have committed to as a government is to create an enabling environment for commerce and economic activity, and for people.
If I can interrupt you here, Minister, I'm going to take the call. You have to lower the volume of your television. Good evening.
Oh, good evening, Eddie.
Good evening, sir.
How are you doing?
I'm quite fine. Your contribution to tonight's issue?
Well, my contribution, I like the topic that the minister bringing up, you know, and I like all these things, you know. But I just want to congratulate the president. I didn't get to see no time at all, you know. I want to congratulate him on the presidency and things. But I know he will be here. I know he's a Muslim, and a Muslim law, if you sell a man a pound of sugar, you must be a pound. Because what I'm trying to tell you now, I just want to see, I know he's the boss. Let me just feed them people and let them get a little money, you know? That's the other thing.
All right, thanks for coming through.
Like that, you know you ain't your foodies, man.
All right, thanks for coming through.
Good.
All right. He's going way back there. But and all that he said, I mean, he didn't really contribute directly to the topic, but he made the point, and I think that's the crux of this bill. If you sell a man a pound of sugar, you must give him a pound of sugar. And I think that's fundamentally puts it so simply that, you know, somebody buys something from you, then whatever is the price you tell them, whatever you say to them that they're getting is what they should receive. So I think that's the point. But Minister, I interrupted you to take that call there. You were making a point.
Yes, I was making a point. The same speaks to what the caller said. Is you're trying to build the government is trying to build that enabling environment, that confidence for people to be able to conduct their financial activities in confidence, and that's how you promote transactions and you increase the level of economic activity and transactions just by the confidence and the enabling environment, the legislation and the regulatory framework is what inures that confidence. So a bill and an act, law such as this, allows the confidence of the seller to say, I will be protected, and therefore he and she or she will invite more persons to come take these products. They're able to open up, and so that you can see as confidence build, commercial activity builds, and so that is the crux. There's a reason, as you mentioned, that the bill has languished, is that this is one of the reasons and the impetus of pushing through with this bill at this point in time, that we're trying to create an ease of doing business where people are confident, and that again that there's recourse when they are wronged, and their recourse when the conditions are particularly unscrupulous or onerous on them.
Good evening. Hello, good evening.
Hi, good night, Eddie.
Good night.
Good night, Minister.
Good night.
I think the interest rate on hire purchase is way too high. Way too high, because I once bought a fridge from Coors, and instead of paying for one fridge, I paid for 3 fridges.
Yes.
And another thing, Eddie.
Yeah.
I can't sleep because everybody come off of here, election finished.
We're back. Don't worry, we're back. We're
And
back.
I can't sleep till 1 in the morning.
we,
got the
we had a
end.
difficult 5 months of every evening. So
I
we
end
took a
up
break.
now-
We're back though. We're back though.
I end up now with CNN with promo prime time because everybody gone from Guyana politics.
All right, we're back. So I'm going to let Minister respond to the point that you made, right? Thanks for coming through. All right.
Yes. So when you think about it, though, Eddie, she is probably right. The idea when a sector is opened up, when there's it's people have got confidence that more people are going to be open to getting into these kinds of transactions, to open more stores, to be able to sell, to want to buy. And as you get more sellers who have been shy or afraid to get into these kinds of transactions, like you said, there are people who are particularly unscrupulous, who would want to disappear with your item, and so they're afraid to embark on a business that promotes and is largely a higher purchase business. So you will find more and more people, and what that does is create competition, and with competition, prices will fall. And this idea of high interest rates, now when, as the caller mentioned, she went to a particular store and she found that the interest rates are high, there are going to be more stores like these now opening. There, as the protection is there, more confidence, there are going to be more stores opening, and the interest rates will fall, and that is the effect that we plan to see in the economy. As you open up and you open a competitive environment, the prices as a result respond downwards.
And you made the point as well, Minister, in addition to that, is the fact that the prices that you're going to see, you'd have to be true. I suspect maybe the caller got trapped because, like you mentioned, the example that you used of the $4,000 and take it home, maybe you got trapped and didn't realize that the interest rate is what is going to rack up the price, so to speak. So the fact that transparency would have to be a hallmark of businesses that provide this kind of service, then you will be able to know that the interest rate will take you, give you a price of 3 times the current price of the item and all of that. So it's one, more businesses being open, but as well the fact that the sellers have to be more transparent will also contribute to people being able to make the right decisions, whether they want an item or not.
And demand better too. They're able to negotiate for better terms. Sometimes the fact that they're ignorant, in fact, when I say ignorant, don't have the knowledge, they're not able to negotiate and say, hey, but you said that this was simple interest, but this is actually compound interest with the rate in which it's going. So, we're not taking this. So, yes, an informed buyer often walks away at the better end of the stake.
Good evening.
Hello?
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
All right, so if you're going to come through with the volume of your television set up, we're going to have to cut you off because it gives us a serious feedback in the studio. Additionally, you're going to come through, please be prepared to make your contribution. There are so many people who want to make a contribution, so I urge you, when you're coming through, be ready to make your contribution so that we can make space for others to call in. Good evening.
Hello, good evening. Is this a program with the minister talking?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. I'd like to ask the minister a question.
Go straight ahead.
Sorry?
Go ahead, sir.
Oh. Yes, I like the minister looking like a lion, no? A lion. I need to ask the question. If I go to buy one of these items on hire purchase and the store scamp me, who do I go to? Do I go to the minister?
So that's a very good question. Under this new legislation,
So the minister is going to respond to you now, right? Thanks for coming through.
Thank you.
yes.
Yes, go
So
ahead.
that's an excellent question. Who do I have recourse to? So the bill provides for the council at first instance. There is the Competition and Consumers Affairs Council that will hear complaints and can levy remedies. But ultimately also the person has recourse to the magistrate court at first instance, and can, of course, the access to the courts in general. But the magistrate court, if the person feels that it has been wrong, that is direct access. In fact, it makes it an offense, as he calls it, to scamp you, which is to be dishonest, to have the unscrupulous practices that we spoke about. It makes it an offense, which is carries a penalty on the law. So the recourse is ultimately to the court of law, and you have hefty fines. The act provides for that. So no, the recourse is not to you don't go to the minister. You actually have the law behind you, and you can go to a magistrate court and get your recourse.
All right, Minister, I think it's now 2033. Maybe we should try to introduce now the Small Business Amendment Bill so that we have both of them as we get to the back end of the program to take the questions. There is a small business bill already, or
yes.
law governing small business.
Yeah.
There is an amendment, or there might be amendments to that existing legislation.
Yeah.
Could you walk us through the amendments?
Yes. Well, you're right. There is a bill since 2004 or 2005. The Small Business Bill was created. What has happened? Which is a bill that essentially creates a fund for the disbursement of grants to small businesses, and the facility for a loan guarantee program where the Small Business Bureau or the council guarantees that after close examination of the small business, they can use the guarantee to secure a loan at the commercial banks. The grants are, since we came into office, we've raised the grants from $200,000 to $500,000. Those grants, you don't have to repay. That's not a loan. The loan facility program, you can get upwards of from $500,000 to millions. And so this is a facility to, once again, to create an enabling environment for business and commerce, and recognizing that small business is the engine of growth in most economies and most emerging economies. The bill provides for a criteria for there are 3 ways in which in the bill that you can qualify, and 2 out of those, if you meet those, you are able to be considered a small business. You have to be declared. There's a small business as a definition. So that speaks to not having more than 25 employees, not having more than $20 million in total assets, and not having more than $60 million of a turnover. What the amendment, the mischief that the amendment is seeking to cure, one of them, is the fact that because they only had to satisfy 2 out of the 3 criteria, you're finding a lot of larger businesses were using that opportunity to qualify as a small business. And why were they doing this? The bill, the act also provides that small businesses are entitled to 20% of government procurement, which is billions of dollars every year. Access to billions of dollars as a small business. So there's significant benefits that you garner as a small business. So bigger businesses were trying to hide and veil and moonlight as a small business to be able to get the access. So the amendment now makes it a criteria that you have to satisfy all 3 criteria to be designated as a small business, and so it seeks to cure that particular mischief.
Go ahead.
Yes. The amendment also removes the discretion of the minister to designate a business a small business, and places that responsibility solely on the council. And the council, the Small Business Council, when it's constituted in accordance with the Act, and it provides for how it will be constituted, will be filled with individuals who are competent to determine and understand, have competencies that relate to business and commerce and those kinds of qualifications. So So the idea that some people may have that the designation of being a small business is now a political discretion, we've removed that, and this is now with an independent body who is going to be considering your proposal to be called and designated a small business, independent of any kind of tone of political interference. So the amendment removes that discretion from the minister and places it directly into an independent council.
And I know for a fact that the Small Business Bureau has been playing a major role in helping a lot of young people, a lot of small businesses that were struggling, persons that maybe started with $100,000 or $200,000 and were struggling to actually get off their feet to move forward. But like you rightly said, because I smiled when you talked about persons having to satisfy 2 of the 3 criteria, because I was looking at a list in the newspapers not so long ago, I think sometime early last year, where you had a number of huge businesses were published as beneficiaries of grants and loans from the Small Business Bureau. And I was asking myself the question, how these businesses were qualified. Now that you have explained that, I think, being fair to smaller businesses, obviously, I have a $20–30 million investment and I'm benefiting from a facility that's supposed to be helping people with $300,000 and $400,000 and $500,000 investment. I don't think that was a level playing field. So clearly, the amendments that you're talking about here is really tightening the screws to allow actual small businesses to benefit from this facility.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the amendment also includes now works. First, the Act only provided for 20% access to government goods and services, but now it includes work. So small businesses can bid for, as you know, the government is on a trajectory of transformational infrastructural projects, and we're going to need many contractors. So now small businesses, this amendment opens up this avenue that wasn't previously open before for them to be able to bid for capital projects as well. Building of roads, buildings, all of these capital projects, up to 20% of the government expected procurement for the year. So that's pretty significant, because that's going to inject billions of dollars into small business for these capital works, as the government has declared that we are embarking on all of the bridges and roads, and now small businesses will be able to access those under this amendment.
I'll take one call, Minister, and I want to take you back to the point that you raised just now. Good evening. I think we lost our one there. I wanted to ask you, I heard you keep saying that small businesses will benefit from the 20% of government contracts where the goods and services are now, with this bill, works. Is there a nexus, some relationship between you accessing funds from the Small Business Bureau and access to these contracts? How do you get qualified? I'm somehow seeing there's some relationship between that facility and you accessing the contracts.
Yes, to access the contracts, all you need to do is to fit the 3 criteria, and you just need to register at the Small Business Bureau. You register as a business, you're declared a small business, and then you're ready to go.
Without taking any loan or any grant.
You don't have to. Yes, you don't have to access a loan or a grant. Most people register because they want to. But certainly to be able to qualify to be a contractor under this Act and to take advantage of this provision, all you need to do is register. The amendment does provide for the business to prove with evidence that you're this small, that you have assets that are not more than 20 million, which is not difficult to prove, but that is it. You don't have to necessarily access the grant to be able to be eligible for the government works contracts.
Good evening. Hello, good evening. All right, so like I said, if you're going to come through with the volume of your television sets up, we're going to have to cut you off. I guess you're hearing the feedback there. I know you want to hear yourselves, but you're going to have to listen to yourselves on the phone, or if you're using a cordless phone, maybe you move out from the room where you are, where the television is. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Hi, good evening, sir.
I want to ask the minister if this law provides for these, let me say, we cite electrical workers, our radio technicians, that will come and do your work, try to repair your television or your music sets. If the law provides for those men who, when they charge you an exorbitant price, if this act provide for you to take action against them.
All right, thanks for coming through. Minister's going to respond to you. I think there might be a little bit of confusion there. He's asking whether the hire purchase bill governs people who, maybe technicians who come to repair your television sets, your music sets, and so forth. But I know there is a separate facility that deals with cases where persons would have overcharged you and so on. So maybe you can explain more the difference between the two.
So hire purchase speaks to a credit facility that you're able to purchase or take possession of an item that you haven't yet paid for, haven't fully paid for. You just paid a small amount and you were able to take the possession, and you enter into agreement for payments, incremental payments. What the caller was speaking about is not quite that credit facility. He's talking about when you are as a contractor, you were charged. The person overcharges you and don't finish your work, and so it's a different arrangement. It's a different contractual arrangement, way different from the taking an item. This is a service. And you know what I would advise the seller is you have if he's an electrician, you have a standard contract where people sign, and when they sign, you have the force of the law to you can use that to take them to court to recover your amounts if you don't if it's not if the service is not done to the standard, then you have recourse to the law. But to have always have something signed, you know. Yeah.
And additionally, Minister, if it's on the other side where, let's say, the caller maybe have experienced a case like that, then there you have the I think it's the Consumers Competition Competition Commission,
complaints, yes,
the complaints section of your ministry where those issues could be raised as well. Absolutely,
yes. The Competition and Consumer Affairs Commission, yes, those complaints about contractors or work that has not been completed can be made, and they will be dealt with. There is a council, a commission there that deals with those, and hear those matters as well.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening, sir.
Yeah, I have a problem, right? I want to see, right? I don't buy and sell in our rings, right? And something you buy to define in our rings damage, and if I have to take it back to them, they told you that they can't take it back and buy it like that. Right, and that's your problem.
You're still there? Hello?
Yes, yes.
All right, thanks. I think Minister is going to respond to that. Right. He's saying that he usually buys and sells fruits, orange in particular he's talking about. There are cases where you buy maybe a bag, maybe 100 oranges from somebody, and when you check, maybe 5 of them are damaged. When you go back to the person that you would have bought it from, they say to you, well, I can't do anything about it. I bought it that way. I know this is a little ticklish because it's perishables, so it's a little bit more
yes, as opposed to an actual good that you would buy from a store. I don't see why the law doesn't apply in terms of warranty and that the item because I think it's circumstantial, I guess. If you take some mangoes, a bag of mangoes, and you just travel 10 minutes down the road and you start to put it on your stall and you see that they're damaged, then that is enough grounds to say, well, it's not like, so as opposed to if you had it in your bag, in the car overnight, and it got, the heat, you could argue that the extended period of time. As with all warranties, it depends on the time. But certainly, this person should feel that there is recourse to whenever they feel wronged in any transaction of that sort. Perishables are a little harder to prove, but they should also feel that they can make complaints about that to the Consumer Affairs Commission.
Good evening. Hello, good evening.
Pleasant night to you, Minister. Pleasant night to you, Moderator.
Good evening, sir.
One the question I would like to ask is, why is it if you want to move from an employer to employee and set up business, you're not allowed to do so once you're working with the government? You have to stay working with the government. You're not allowed to have access to the small business grant once you're working with the government, and you want to move off from being an employer and employee.
Mm-hmm.
You want to move from being an employee to an employer, that's what you're saying?
Yeah, correct. Sorry about that. My wrong. Right.
But is it a case where, before you go, before Minister responds, is it a case where you're saying you're trying to quit your job with the government and you don't want to start your own business? Is that?
You're setting up this structure and you want to leave the government job because you said something, you want to move off, but you want to move off from that to your own business.
All right, thanks. I'll have Minister.
You're allowed to do that once you're in the system.
All right, thanks for coming through.
Yes. So we've had this this sort of query before. Specifically the public servants who are still working, actively involved in the public service, want to have a business on the side, and they want to access the facility. It is currently a policy decision that you really can be biting both sides of the pie, and the government has currently made the decision that as a public servant that you cannot use the facility of the Small Business Bureau. It's meant to be for others. Sort of thing. It's a policy decision that has been existent. It is certainly something that I have been, since coming into government, I've been hearing more and more arguments for. At the level of cabinet, it's definitely something that has to be ventilated further. It hasn't been since we've come into powers yet, but it's for now. That is a policy decision that we made at the level of cabinet, and I think if government can continue to re-examine and look at it, but for now, that is the decision.
And obviously, Minister, with what you say there, I didn't hear you say anything about if you quit your job.
Oh, no, absolutely, yeah.
Obviously, you can go and benefit from the facility,
absolutely.
But I think the public service rules are quite clear of you being an employee, being in the system and having another business. So I think I don't know if there is some level of confusion with what the gentleman was told or whether he misinterpreted what was said. But I nowhere see that if you quit the job that you can't benefit from such a facility. You are no longer a public servant.
Right, yes.
Good evening.
Good night.
Hi, good evening, sir. Could you speak up a little?
Yeah. I have a question.
Yes.
What is the mechanisms available to getting to the courts? Is the commission going to help you, or you got to employ a private lawyer? That's the big question in this whole thing. Otherwise, this whole thing is a fairy tale. Thank you.
Thank you for coming through. So the question there is whether, I lodge a complaint about a particular person who is selling something in high purchase. They probably seized my item before the 50%, or after I finished paying 50%. They misled me with the price or whatever. If I go to the commission, and I think that's the question he's asking, is the commission going to assist me with the legal procedure getting to the court and so
yes,
forth?
it's going to be done in a form. The form will be provided, And for those people who are not able, because it's the magistrate court who are not able to hire a lawyer, would need to. You can the form will be filled out. You can direct them to how to take the magistrate court. This kind of the process in terms of practically how it will happen hasn't been fleshed out because the law is now coming into place. But it certainly contemplates the small man being not being burdened by having to appear and pay court fees and pay lawyers' fees, but to get that assistance from the council.
And I suspect at the level of the council to maybe a preliminary kind of assessment of the case will be done to determine whether the person has a solid case. And maybe. Yeah.
And sometimes it's really, and it can be resolved right there before it even gets to the court.
And that is where, if the idea goes beyond, you get the whole case of maybe the council providing the support, whether whether it's legal support or so. But like you said, it hasn't been yet fleshed out. So to the gentleman, you can rest assured.
Yes.
The council is going to assist you with the process. Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening, sir.
I have a question, sir. I have a business that has been registered for the past 6 years now.
Yes.
It is with landscaping and maintenance. I've tried before with the small business guru to get a grant, but was denied. But my business is not exceeding $6 million worth in assets. And it also employs like about 4 people to do details and so on. Could the minister kindly tell me how and where can I go to get some assistance?
Hold 1 second, sir. Operator, could you kill the audio so that I can take his number? I'm going to pass this to the minister, and I'm sure that she's going to get someone to talk to you. All right? All right. Thanks for coming through. Yes. Thank you very much, dear. So you're going to have a lot of those cases.
Yes.
Hello. Good evening. I think I still have the same caller there. Yes, so we have maybe maybe 3 minutes more. We'll try to sneak in probably a few more calls, maybe 2-3 more calls before we wrap this up here, Minister. But a lot of those cases will come where people feel somehow they were not given the opportunity to benefit. Good evening.
Hi, good night, Eddie. Good night, Minister.
Good night.
I'm just complaining about this interest rate. It's so high. It's like a small man will go and buy something on a high purchase, like a maid, let's say a maid, and they cannot afford to buy cash. When they go to buy that appliance or whatever it is, the interest rate is so high, it's double up. And, you got to look at people's pockets, what they can afford, And a small man is so pressured, it's too much for them. And I like the program very much because it's enlightening. And Eddie, I miss your program.
I'll be back this Saturday, don't worry.
You wouldn't believe me.
I'll be back this Saturday, right where I used to be, and I'm going to be back on Tuesdays as well, right there. So it's a whole different type of programming than this one, but
I was actually lost.
What you're accustomed to, what you guys are accustomed to. So don't worry, I'll be back on Tuesdays and Saturdays.
On elections.
Thanks for coming through. Thanks for coming through.
Good night.
All right, thanks. Yes, Minister, the same question again.
Yeah. Yes, it will certainly be something that we will look at the ministry now that it has been raised. The second time, it's clearly an issue. As government, we don't get involved in price manipulation, but when certainly conditions that are that seem to be unduly burdensome on the small man, we will take note of this to see if there's any intervention that government can or ought to make. So we will certainly address this issue.
Right, we probably take one more call. Good evening. Hi, good evening, sir.
How are you?
All right, go straight ahead. We're almost out of time, so we're giving you a chance.
Yes, Eddie, I'm working out 2 years now. I'm paying a nice man. I began last year. Now I'm going to get 680 contribution, and I don't really going on.
You're working, what you said, 32 years?
Yes, 2 years now. I'm paying a nice, yes.
You have only 680 contributions?
Yeah.
All right, so I'll ask the operator to just take us off air so that I can take your number. We're going to try to pass this to the relevant people so that they can try to examine this case for you, right? I suspect it was you. I suspect it was you. Thanks for coming through. Thank you. Yeah. One of the regular callers.
One of your fans.
Yeah. We take one more. Could we, operator, do we have time to take one more and then we wrap this up? All right, so we take one more call, Minister. Good evening.
Good night to you, Eddie, and Minister as well.
Good night.
I have a question, and this is for the auto dealers. Let's say a customer go and purchase a car on hire purchase from an auto dealer. Let's say the car valued $2 million, and on hire purchase it comes up, let's say, 4.2. Now, for some reason or the other, the customer pay $2 million, and they have a balance of 2.2 outstanding, but they have some arrears in terms of they have some hiccups and they go into arrears, and they're not able to make that full installment back, so they're climbing behind in, let's say, a month or a 2 month back. Now, the auto dealer after sometimes pulls the car back. That customers lose that $2 million that they spent. Does the law help the customer to gain back something? Because remember, they will also be paying insurance, which also the customer doesn't get back.
All right, thanks for coming through. I'm sure Minister will be able to respond to you. Thanks for coming through. Good.
Yes. On the current regime, there is no protection. You lose it all. You lose corn and husk. You just hope that you depend on the good graces of the seller. Under this new legislation that is being that will be promulgated, the seller absolutely cannot come and pull back, as the caller call it, a vehicle that is almost halfway paid for. There is the issue of notice has to be given. Opportunities for the seller, for the buyer to pay the amounts. Written notice. You have defaulted. You have 2 weeks to pay. So that process has to be met by the seller, given the purchaser an opportunity and several opportunities to pay before they can even think of beginning to commence repossession proceedings. And even that, it is no longer, you are no longer permitted to just go into the person's premises without notice as well. So there's a lots of opportunities for the purchaser to remedy the default, and I think that's a lot. Just what most people are asking for is opportunity, some time to remedy default, and this legislation will provide for lots of that.
All right, Minister, thank you so much. We're almost out of time. I'm going to give you a chance for some closing comments.
Well, I want to thank you once again. I thank all the viewers. This has been great. Thank you for taking the time to give your feedback. It helps when people take the time to let the government know what bothers you, what ails you, because ultimately we are here for the people, for our citizens, to make sure that that their lives are better and their lives are enhanced. So I really appreciate you, Eddie, for having me here and for all the feedback, and just know, so the people to know that government continues to work to resolve and to improve livelihoods all around for all Guyanese.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Oneidge Walrond. I have to ensure that I get that one right. Yeah. For being here this evening and to share with us, to share with the public, for them to have a greater understanding and appreciation of what the hire purchase bill really is, and of course the small business amendment bill. We're going to be back here with you next Thursday, and God's willing, I'll be joined by the Honorable Colin Crowell, the Minister of Housing and Water, where we'll do the same thing. We'll talk to you to take your concerns, your complaints, and issues affecting you, and to clarify issues that, where clarity is needed. Until then, we want to remind you that the People's Progressive Party civic government has made a commitment to be open, to be transparent, to be accessible. And like I said at the beginning, Minister, that the ministers of the government cannot be in every community at the same time. So this is one of the many opportunities that we're creating for you as citizens to access the government and to be able to raise your concerns and to have them addressed. To the two persons who called, and the gentleman with regards to his small business, as well as the gentleman with regards to his NIS contributions, we want to assure you that Minister and her colleagues who are responsible in the various sectors will ensure that this is addressed, and next Thursday when we're back here we'll give you an update. Until then, again, Minister, thanks for being here, and thank you very much for joining us. Have a good rest of the evening. Be safe.